Let the meeting minutes reflect all three trustees present. Okay. Zoning report, Al?
Yes, three permits were written. Mr. Nevison has done an excellent job on the property as far as cleaning it up. There's a little more he's gonna do, but it's 100%, it's 150% better than what it was. Working on a couple other things. The fire that was on the building, they still have some cleanup to do there with the foundation, but they're up to date.
What were the three permits, Al?
Three were on Forest, which was a house and garage. And then one on, another one on Kincor over in Lake Cardinal, which is a garage. And the third one is addition to a house.
Where is that one at?
Pardon me?
Where is that addition at?
Don't remember.
Okay. Well, we can look at the permits. Okay. All right. Anything else to report for zoning?
No, things are going okay. A lot of inquiries, a lot of appraisals for loans or whatever. There's a lot of that stuff going on. But no, it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open it up to community comments. First, we have a special guest here from Luke Gildermeister from Reactive Solar. Is that correct?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name's Luke. I work at Reactivate Solar. Reactivate is a Chicago-based company that develops, owns, and operates small to mid-sized solar facilities. The purpose of me being here tonight is to inform Rome Township of our proposed Pearl Crescent solar project. We thought it'd be best to be transparent, provide project basics, and form a connection with members of the township. Reactivate actually acquired this potential project from a company named Cultivate earlier this year. The project would be located at 3688 US Highway 6 in Rome, so just up here. This is subject to change, but at this preliminary stage, the system size would only be 4.95 megawatts. The fenced acreage would likely be around 20 to 30 acres. So the project would have single axis trackers, which just means that the panels would follow the sun every day and then they would reset at night. The panels would be about 6 to 8 feet tall, depending on the time of day. So like at noon, they'd be flat as a pancake. The project would be fenced, obviously, according to National Electrical Code. Pollinator habitat would be planted within the fenced area. So the idea being, okay, let's make deep-rooted grasses to, promote infiltration and reduce stormwater runoff. It's very flat land anyway. Reactivate would be responsible for mowing and maintaining the fenced acreage. There would be no battery systems involved. Once operational, the project would not have any noise, odor, light, or dust. In the event that the project does move forward, Reactivate would plan on being the long-term owner and operator, as opposed to selling it to another company before construction. Typically, these projects are about 25 to 40 years. In an ideal world, Reactivate would want this to be a community solar project. And so what that means is it would allow local residents, businesses, etc., to subscribe to a portion of the electricity produced by the project. So these subscribers would receive what's called a bill credit, so like a 5 to 15% discount on their monthly utility bills. The viability of that community solar program is pretty much completely political. It's contingent upon a community solar bill that did pass the Ohio House last November. The legislation is now in the Ohio Senate, and the hope is that the legislation will be taken out of the Senate Energy Committee later this year following the midterm elections. So if there's one thing to take away tonight, I'm almost done here, it's just that the project is in preliminary stages. The primary hangup is the hooking up to the electrical grid. So Pro Crescent would connect to the Rome substation just north on what I believe is 45 here, just north of where we are tonight. The project is second in the interconnection queue, and utilities study these projects on a first come, first served basis. So Reactivate has to wait for the first in queue project, another small proposed project in the Huntsburg area, to be studied by the utility before our project can even start to be studied. And that process can take 3 to 6 months or even longer. So over the coming year or two, if interconnection studies commence and community solar legislation passes, Reactivate would engage in the standard development process. So the way that plays out is concurrently with the interconnection studies. So development of solar facilities consists of wetland studies, environmental studies, soil studies, parcel surveys, and other risk mitigation measures before construction. So thank you for letting me take the time to introduce the project to Rome Township. You know, any community that we have a small project in, we want to be a responsible neighbor and a good steward of the land. I left my business card and a preliminary site plan that is subject to change with you guys. I also left a couple business cards if any of you all have questions or want to email me. I'm happy to talk if you guys have any questions or want updates. So thank you for your time. Have a nice evening. And again, if there's any project specific questions, I can do my best to answer.
I have a couple questions. How long has Reactivate been in business? Corporation, LLC, what type of business?
Yeah, so the best way, 2022 is the direct answer to your question. The slightly longer answer is that the parent company is Invenergy, which is one of the largest power producing companies in the world. They do coal, they do oil, they do natural gas, wind, solar, and their offices are based in Chicago. And they basically, what they did 4-ish years ago is say, let's have a small portion of this massive worldwide company, a very small, like 67 employees is all we have, just be dedicated to small scale community solar.
Okay. And how many solar properties, projects, whatever, do you have currently?
Good question. Approximate estimate is about 7 operational projects, and those are all in Illinois. We just acquired a couple more in Illinois that we are planning on constructing early next year, next spring, once winter.
All right, look, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What was the address of the property?
Yeah, it's just south off of 6 here, so
3688.
3688 US Highway 6.
And so has this property been bought or leased?
Leased.
Okay. I have another question, but I forgot. Anybody want to ask any questions to this gentleman while he's up here?
You said there's some kind of subscription service. Is that a paid or a free subscription service that you're referencing?
Yeah, it's that's why I just want to clarify, like, this is a lot of things have to go right in order to make these projects happen, and yeah, in order for locals to receive a discount on their utility bills, which, as we all know, is always going up, in order to receive an actual discount, community solar legislation would have to pass, and it's passed the House last November, and it's just chilling in the Senate Energy Committee in Columbus. And for that to actually move forward, and that's where it kind of gets political, is that legislation would have to eventually be taken out of the committee on the Senate floor to get a vote to become actual legislation, and that could take another year
So
or
that's
so.
a goal, it's not set, that's a goal that you have, is to have a subscription.
Yeah, the idea being that we would want to, yeah.
And what percentage of solar energy is being pushed to the grid at this point in time? I mean, your solar energy goes out to the grid, or it doesn't go to all the local people around the panels? So where does the solar energy go to? Does it push to the grid?
Yes, it would go to the, specifically to the substation just north of us on
So it
45.
doesn't necessarily benefit anybody in this community, it just goes to the grid like any other energy source would?
It would go to the local substation here, and that's, again, it's completely hypothetical at this point because it still has to be studied by the utility. The hope, emphasis on the hope part, is that it would be a community solar project, and that means that there would be local subscribers. The primary benefit being you'd be able to receive bill credits.
There are areas in the United States that have much better, less cloud coverage throughout a normal year than Ohio. Why did you pick this area then?
Yeah, so I wasn't part of the acquisition process within the company, so I wasn't privy to those discussions of why the company specifically wanted this one. What I can say though is that generally speaking, solar developers look for, at least on a small scale, small type of solar like this, you look for smaller pieces of land, relatively flat, close to a electrical substation that has capacity. And so in this case, you have the parcel is just, what would that be? If we're looking north here, so it'd be just south off of 6. The 3-phase runs obviously parallel on the north side of 6. It runs right to the substation. And so from a solar development perspective, that is more attractive because the electricity that's generated by the panels, it doesn't have to travel far to the electrical substation, if that helps.
The panels themselves, is there any chemicals that are within the panels that there's ever any possible fear of leakage if a damage were to occur?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and I've been doing this for 5 years, and it's one of the most common questions that we get. Very reasonable question. What I would say is the panels are they have an encapsulant, essentially, so I actually have a visual if you want to see it, but there's a encapsulant and then there's a glass panel over it. So the primary, it's essentially made up of polysilicon, and then you have glass, steel, aluminum. It's fully contained, so it's not going to vaporize nothing's going to vaporize into the air or leak out with like a rainfall event.
No, I was thinking more of damages, like I drive down 271 and I see a solar farm where one is damaged and broken, and it's never been repaired every time I drive by. So in my opinion, that glass and all of those things have now broken, and so whatever was in there is probably now on the ground.
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. I would say, in theory, any kind of energy infrastructure, whether it's solar, wind, gas, could in theory be damaged and have to be repaired. That is if a huge storm event were to occur and there were damage to the panels, yes, in theory they could, spread to the ground. However, likely or unlikely, we don't need to argue about that, but what I would say is we would have to have insurance, and then there's also like geotechnical studies that are done prior to construction, and what that is like testing of the soil underneath to make sure that the I-beams that host the panels are sturdy. So I'm speaking generally here, but solar facilities can typically withstand up to 120-ish mile-per-hour winds. Now, if a tornado were to come through, that's a different ballgame, because then you're talking what you referred to, which would be broken glass.
Damage.
What's the longevity of the panels, the lifespan of these kind of panels?
Yeah, generally speaking, about 25 to 30 years, and that's about the length of the warranty on them.
And then what happens after that?
Yeah, a great question. So decommissioning is, I would say it's a growing industry in that there is still a lot of work to be done. How do you derive revenue or make a profitable company on the recycling of modules? And to be completely blunt with you guys, I would say it's still an emerging industry, and the reason I say that is because a lot of the solar facilities, I'm sure you see it on the news, they haven't been through the entire existence yet, right? The earliest ones probably came around in the 2010s. Well, if you're talking about a 25 to 40 year lifespan, that's still decades away. So I would say there's definitely companies out there, like Solar Cycle is one that I know of for fact that exists. And a lot of the module materials can be recycled. And I can provide more specifics on that if you want, but I would say there's definitely a lot of work to be done in terms of like making that kind of enterprise profitable.
I think what a lot of people are concerned with,
Company going out of business.
a company goes out of business, just like, a lot of the oil and gas wells that have happened in the past, where you have these gas wells sitting there, and nobody takes care of them, et cetera.
Yeah,
The government now has stepped in and, you're capping some of them, et cetera, but
yeah,
again,
that's,
people are bearing the burden from a company that profited and then just leaves the mess behind, right?
very, very good question. So I will say Illinois actually has a very, very solid community solar program, and what they require is what's called an agricultural mitigation agreement. And that agreement for any project, solar project, and it requires a decommissioning surety to be set up before any construction, so that there's this pot of gold set aside, so that if the company goes bankrupt, something happens, well then the Rome Townships of the world are not stuck with
Correct.
a non-operating facility. The last thing I'll mention, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much because I know you guys have an agenda. What I would say though, in the unlikely event that this project is built and Reactivate were to go out of business, we wouldn't want that to happen. The project would still be generating revenue, so another developer in theory would be able to acquire it.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I know yeah, go for it.
Has a lease already been signed?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys aren't in an agreement to purchase the land or anything like that? And you said, is it 20 to 30 acres, just could be covered in solar panels instead of whatever they're growing right now?
Well, yes, right now you have soybeans and sometimes you have corn. I believe the acreage of the parcel, would be upwards of 60 acres. So the idea is, you be able to consolidate it as best you can and provide, the diversification of income.
And as far as were you involved in a lease signing or anything like that?
I was not because, sorry, it was.
Are you familiar with the contract at all? Like, are you signing up more people down the street? Like, you're trying to get...
Yes, I'm familiar with this specific project contract, and no, we're not signing any other leases in the area. So this would be it. And again, that's completely contingent on, does community solar become a program in Ohio, and does this substation to the north of town here on 45, does it even have capacity to host the facility?
Yeah, because it's like you don't get solar all day, and you don't have battery or flywheel storage around here. So you're gonna peak around noon.
12 to 5, generally speaking.
So it's like, it's not like grid level electricity. It's like, so what benefit does it bring to the community? Like, what does everybody get out of it that lives here in Rome Township or the whole area?
And the answer to your question is, I guess in theory you could have the project without the community solar legislation, but if the community solar legislation does not pass, I'm not entirely sure if Reactivate would even want to construct the project, honestly. So I guess what I'm trying to say, to answer your question as best I can, is that
Yeah,
the legislation passes, well then, in theory, your benefits in that scenario where it passes and the project is constructed, the neighbors and businesses in the area would be able to subscribe to a small portion of that, call it 5 megawatt facility. So you're, I don't know, if your utility bill is $60 a month or whatever, and we know they're always climbing,
yeah,
you get, you know, $6 to $10 off per month with the bill credit.
okay.
We'd also have to pay for any upgrades between the site and the substation.
It's just like they're so expensive to put in, and they don't produce that much electricity. Is it all about the green energy credits? Like, is it just to be packaged to be sold elsewhere? Because we don't need it around here. We don't need more power in this area. We're well established. We have a reactive power source in Eastlake providing power all the way to Pennsylvania. We don't need the electricity around here. So is it for like green energy credits is the whole point of setting this up? So those are the most, like you sell those to the data centers or to Google or whoever?
Yeah, good question. The answer, well, as best I can answer is, you wouldn't have, the credits, let me address the credit thing first. The credits have phased out, like the tax incentives. Those have expired, I wanna say, that was from the beautiful bill last summer, and those expired this 4th of July. So there's no more federal subsidies as it would pertain to this kind of solar.
But there's always something coming for tax breaks and whatnot, or, you know, like they have to invest this much in solar or this much in wind or whatever because of what they're doing somewhere else. Like if you look at 45, they dug up a whole like empty farm plot to build a wetland because they destroyed it somewhere else, probably New Jersey. And they came over here like, oh, we gotta make a wetland now, 150 acres on Route 45. And so like that's like it's like we're just it's like an accounting thing. It's like they're doing that, it's accounting from New Jersey to here. And so like this green energy thing is like we don't need the power on our grid because our grid's fine. In fact, our wires can't take any more around here. It's not like you're gonna hurt it because solar doesn't make that much. But it's like you just, I'm not seeing the benefit to the community. I mean, other than the person who's, you know, getting paid for their land. The promise of buy-in on solar discounts is kind of that's a big maybe. You know, once the ink is dry, you guys can kind of do whatever you want, right? I mean.
Yeah, I think if you want to, like Frank talk about like incentives, yeah. Landowner gets income diversification, you know, in a 25-year project. Well, that's, if you're making, I don't know, 300 an acre, whatever it is on corner soybeans, you know, you multiply it by 3, and that's kind of your landowner proposition. In terms of, yes, the company, obviously, any project that it builds, your rate of return, you'd want, I would say, anything under 5%, a solar company like Reactivate or Reactivate Energy, they're not gonna touch it.
Yeah.
It's not worth the time.
And
So it would probably be, sorry, I hope that kind
no,
of addresses it.
I clear as mud. As far as, you know, you're talking about the bonds for remediation and that kind of thing, like the bonds for, there's always a limit on a bond. It's not an everything bond generally, you know, that's why the gas wells, I'm sure they had something and now they're just kind of stuck there. But if you guys were to not do so well, because it doesn't seem like it's to be very profitable, if you guys were to go bankrupt or whatever with the bond, the landowner is always going to be the person left responsible for their land, and if it's doing anything, or if they consider an eyesore, it becomes a waste cleanup problem, that kind of thing. That's what I'd be concerned about. Maybe they haven't thought that far. I haven't seen their contract, that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
is that something you guys share? Do you guys share the contract to see, like, can we look at it? Like,
So the agreement is private between the landowner and the company. What I will say though is that there's decommissioning in there. And in the event that this project were to become reality, we would want to set up some sort of decommissioning surety with the township.
and like you said, it's new, unproven, and no one's really decommissioned it yet, right? So those costs are all about, like I thought my house was gonna be 140 grand forever, and now it's worth almost $1,000, you know, because of inflation. Like, do you have like, I mean.
Yeah, you could do,
Yeah.
again, I know we're all talking hypotheticals here and I don't want to hijack your meeting.
Inflation is
And
very
I'm
real.
happy to talk further.
Yeah.
No, it's a fair point
No,
though,
no.
you know, given the raising prices, and
Yeah.
if it's a quarter century project,
Yeah.
you you could have a financial cost estimate based on the project size, broken out into line item.
Yes, and, yeah, and then.
So those do exist, that's all I wanted to say.
I understand. And then the last thing is, as far as these projects are concerned, if something goes wrong, like your contractors don't fulfill their duties, there's something wrong, and the landowner's just not happy. So like, I want to get these guys out of here, I'm going to sue them. And they can't sue you, can they?
Though you're saying if the landowner was upset,
And they felt that the duties of the contractor not being fulfilled by your company,
yeah,
they're not allowed to sue you.
I guess I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, you do. You know
No,
that.
I really don't.
Okay.
What
Okay,
what you're
because
saying though, that's not,
they're not allowed to sue you. It's part of your contract. You have binding arbitration. All these companies, so I can't go to Harold Specht or anybody in Western Eastern County Court and sue you if I have a problem. I gotta pay somebody in Chicago from American Arbitration Association. I'm gonna pay them a bunch of money to show up, and I gotta pay up front to do it, to sue you. And I can't just get justice locally. I'm stuck dealing with the out-of-town man because there's nobody operating that solar field while you're gone.
yeah, okay, so the operational
You
piece,
know.
that is not an unfounded concern.
Yeah.
I was actually just in Payne, Ohio last week, and there was, to your point, a facility that was being poorly maintained, and
We have one already. We have Kent State. You've seen the solar panels up there? Looks like there's a bunch of bulls walking around there all the time. It's like, nobody cares.
yeah, so that's part of the reason why I like coming to these kinds of meetings early and introducing ourselves so we're not strangers. But in the event where something's not being maintained or not operating correctly,
Yeah.
I
Like I said,
would
they have
want
no-
somebody from the township to notify us. So we have I'm on the development team, we have a operations manager who it's his job to literally take care of, his name is Chet, to take care of operational projects, to send
Yeah,
contractors.
and they can go yell at the homeowner, say, but the homeowner, if he wants to, like I said, if he wants to sue you, he can't. He's not allowed to. He's just restricted.
What was the power output of the solar project?
4.95 megawatts.
Subject to change, that's entirely dependent on what the interconnection studies, but at this preliminary stage it'd be 4.95.
Eric, does Rome Township have restriction on 5,000 and under for zoning?
The ordinance does not address solar.
Don't. So. All right, thank you. for your time.
I have my business card here if any of you guys have further questions.
Thank you. All right. Is there anybody here from the wind turbine group?
Not from the sales point, but from the community action point of view.
Right, okay. All right, so I'm gonna open it up to community comments. There's a lot of us here. Like to try and keep it to like around 2 minutes, if anybody wants to say their piece, etc. And then we also have Adam here from the president of the Township Association. He might know some other additional items that he could speak on in behalf of questions that we may not be able to answer or somebody else. So, and I don't mean to throw you under the bus.
No.
So,
I would start with Adam because he's probably got the most knowledge.
yeah, well, good, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, one
Yeah,
quick
go
thing,
ahead. Whatever
one
you
quick
wanna
thing.
do.
So just, I want to preface this, and Adam and I spoke just a few minutes ago. Our township was trying to be proactive about this years ago. Several years ago, we did put in a restriction on wind turbines, etc. But as Adam pointed out to me, that doesn't, and I'm not sure what the wording you used, but basically for a large economic scale project, that zoning can be overruled essentially. So years ago, we did try and put in there because we do know the effects of these wind turbines, etc. We've looked into them in the past. So it's not to say that you can't have a wind turbine locally, like a smaller one, but there's a height restriction on it, and a lot of farmers have windmills that pump water, etc. We're not trying to preclude any of that sort of thing. We were looking at the big projects, etc. because we do know there are a lot of issues with them as well. The idea, the concept is good in theory, but there's also a lot of negatives that go along with having them. So anyhow, sorry about that, Adam. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, to touch on that, my name is Adam Nevidomsky. I'm with the Asheville County Township Association. There's been a big community push on these wind turbines. So what has been asked of us as trustees from the Commissioner's Office is that we adopt a resolution being fully restricted, partially restricted, no restrictions at all. Now, what that is, that's more of a proactive approach. The September 1st timeline is not a deadline, because come September 3rd, or September 1st, when the commissioners meet, they're not going to be ruling on this. So basically what they've asked to do is we go around to all the townships, we develop whether or not you want to be restricted, partially restricted, or unrestricted, and then they create a map based on that information from the townships. The commissioners will 100% are committed to following what the township decides to do for each individual township. And they've asked the trustees to work with their local residents, because obviously we as trustees know our community the best and what's going to fit the best in the community. Just to touch on a few things, I just want to be clear right off the bat, there's absolutely no project in Asheville County or any township in Asheville County that is proposed in progress to be developed right now. There's a company going around called Apex, and they're under Station Wind. They're signing leases within the county because they're prospecting to see whether or not that this could become a viable project to pursue. Now, when it comes to, we'll address the solar thing first. This resolution also covers the solar. Solar is regulated beyond 50 megawatts by the Ohio Power Siting Board and Senate Bill 52. So the 5 megawatt situation would fall under local zoning, which obviously they've done their due diligence already on. And as far as they're not required to hold a decommissioning bond with the Ohio Power Siting Board, which the wind turbines above 5 megawatts are. Now, in that particular situation, I'm sure the rules are a lot more lenient when it comes to, like you spoke about, the inflation. When you have wind, anything from 5 megawatts to 50 megawatts, and these are general terms because it's just a little less of each, they have to, that's considered economically significant. So that would also have to go through the Power Siting Board, and even 50 megawatts and beyond, the same situation. They would have to hold a decommissioning bond with the state of Ohio. That decommissioning bond has to be reviewed every 5 years due to inflation for the dismantling of these wind turbines. So anything less than 50 megawatts in a solar sense probably does not, and we'd have to keep our eye on that type of situation. These large wind turbines, they're roughly about 700 feet tall. The one in Cleveland's 400 feet. They do produce shadow flicker, so in the event the sun comes around at a certain point of day, it could pose a shadow on your home, and only your home is what is required by the state to be studied. So if it's anywhere else on your property, your barns, anywhere else, it's only your primary dwelling that they care about, and that has to have a study and be regulated by the state for a certain amount of time. Same with the sound. It can only be a certain amount of decibels, and that has to be regulated by the state. And if it's not, they're fined, and they have to do some sort of mitigation to make it work some way or somehow. They do have to, in the same situation, stay away from wetlands. They have to stay away from eagles' nests. They have to stay away from any type of cultural significant sites. They have to do all these things to apply for their project with the Ohio Power Siting Board, which ultimately, being us as townships, depending on how we decide, if let's say we're restricted, that would automatically die at the Power Siting Board, because if our commissioners would say, hey, no, that's a restricted area, so then that project could not be developed. Another little check and balance to that situation is you are allowed to have a referendum within 30 days of that map passing at the county level. And that has to be a gubernatorial election, which in a sense is when a governor gets elected. But that has to be by 8% of the county's general election. 8% of that would have to, and I think the last one, it would be right around 2,500 petitions signed to get this put on the ballot for a vote. Trying to think of anything else to touch on. When can you think of anything that's kind of like really significant that, I mean, does anybody have any questions in regards to these turbines that, you know, it's kind of jumping out at them that I could possibly help answer?
How, or what's the time that if things move through, are we talking a year, 2 years, 5 years?
They're saying about 5 years before they would even get a project developed. And because, I mean, just the timetable that would take to go through, because again, you know, there's other stopping points that they would have to meet. Let's hypothetically say it was allowed to continue on. They would still have to have public hearings just like this to try to, you know, get the public's opinion again. I mean, there's quite a few checks and balances that this has to go through. And I think it is difficult as a trustee. I mean, you have to, you know, weigh those, the scale of, you know, I don't think anybody wants to tell anybody what to do with their property, but at the same time, we have to look out for those that if, say, you had 100 acres and you had one of those wind turbines, how does that affect maybe the other 30, 40 residents nearby with 1 to 2 acres? So it is a difficult thing, and I know that you guys definitely have a lot on your plate just like we do, but we have to think about what's actually the greater good for our residents and our community. I mean, the only benefits that the company has put out, but again, that's their business model, because I can't stress it enough. This is a private company. They do not have eminent domain. They basically, what they have to do is they have to stack building blocks of land all the way up the Route 11, Route 7 corridor to get to the grid, to get to the grid at roughly Route 90. That's where they're going to connect in. And you know, it's difficult for a difficult decision, but it has to be a decision made to determine what the residents feel is necessary, and I definitely feel like they're going to do a great job.
So one thing, everybody talks about the height of them, but nobody ever really touches about the base and how deep that base of concrete goes, which could be up to 30 feet or more.
Correct.
Which could possibly affect your water table.
Absolutely. So, I mean, and it's funny because we talk about water tables, but here in Ashtabula County, believe it or not, our seasonal water table is roughly 6 to 10 inches below the surface of the ground. I mean, it's very, very shallow. That's why you see a lot of our septic systems are above ground, because of that exact situation. But yeah, when you start going 30 feet in the ground with concrete and all this disturbance, you know, it kind of does, you know, put a question mark as far as how is it affecting our water quality. I mean, you look in Windsor, you know, they'll drive out these brine trucks from PA to throw in the deep injection wells out there. And I'll be one to tell you, the water is not the same as it was when I was a kid. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely, you know, a big decision ahead, but I have full confidence in your guys' trustees.
I have one question you touched on. I remember the proposal was for, against, and then there's some, whatever in between. What does that in between look like? I mean, because.
Well, that in between, I mean,
even defined.
basically what that looks like is if you find a section of your township that you feel your residents would be okay with that area being, to have wind turbines, then what you would do is you would pass that resolution, but you would also have to draft a map of your own and a reasoning why that you felt that way in your township. So you would have to have a definitive area as to where that would work.
Okay.
Well, once if we did the resolution where we do not want it at all, can that be reversed in the future? Let's say if a farmer came or that said, hey, I got to do something or I'm going to lose my farm. Could that be reversed at that point?
What I personally like about the way this is set up is, let's say that you choose to be restricted. In a sense, it's a pretty conservative approach, because if there was a future that had the need for modification, you would have that ability. And I'm sure the commissioners would, again, you know, work with you on that particular situation.
I would also add that if you sign one of these leases, you've already lost your farm. Because once you sign this lease, Brian mentioned what these leases look like, you lose all your rights. They can tell you you cannot hunt. They can tell you when you can spread manure.
You can't
They
build a
can-
garage because you
can't
can
build a
interfere with the wind
garage.
flow.
They can tell you what you can and cannot do.
They can they can sell hunting rights to your property, to other people, to
They
their
can build
buddies.
housing on your property. Plus, not to
They
mention
can
the
strip-
infrastructure that they destroy on the roads when they bring this equipment in. They say they're going to fix it, but the Huron folks said, yeah, they'll fix it, but they're not gonna fix it to the standard you want it at. They're gonna fix it to their standard. And again, the same with these solar contracts, they're signing NDAs because they don't want anybody to see them. You know, there's a reason they have people sign these things, because they don't want people to see them. Why is that? What do you have to hide? So you do lose you're completely all rights, and it does affect everybody around. When you're talking about something that's 7 foot high in the air, when you see, you're talking 40 miles away, you're gonna see it.
Yeah, and
So
the
that's
shadow-
why you're not just affecting this township, you're affecting the county, even neighboring counties.
Yeah, if you do the trigonometry, north most of the year, 1 mile, significant shadow flicker from each turbine.
Yeah, they say, the fire chief asked, what do you do? And they said, well, we'll train you. That's the only answer we keep getting, we'll train you. Well, the honest answer is they can't do anything, they let it burn. And if you watch some of the videos on this with flames going off of these things, that could be
Hundreds,
shooting over to
thousands
your
of pounds.
neighbor's barn, you
Yeah.
know, and, you know, it's a monstrosity that destroys the area it's on and all surrounding area.
The other question that's floating out there that nobody has really answered is what's the air restriction around it for like light flight? If they gotta come in and try to land somewhere on a roadway or a back county road, and if there's a restriction, and they gotta go 5-10 minutes down the road,
That's
you know.
a big thing, because, yeah, they can't crop dust any of the
Right.
fields within so many miles now because of that's
Right.
probably why they're not having anything going on in Denmark, really. It's not really a
So,
question in Denmark right next to
And then
the
as a homeowner,
airport.
when you sign that lease, any future, like if you try to get a mortgage, a loan, you're restricted on what you can do on that. And that mortgage company usually would put a lien against your property where they're not going to, because that leaseholder from that energy company controls all that.
And your property values go down as well as your neighboring property values. So when you say it is your property, it's true, but you are affecting your neighbors because you're affecting their values as well.
It's,
So-
yeah, it changes the
It's a
entire
domino.
character of the area, and your night sky is now polluted. They're like, oh, we can put radar lights up. I'm like, no one ever does that.
Yeah, I
They
don't
put-
think
all you
we're
see is
gonna-
red blinking lights. You ever go by Peach Bottom Nuclear in Pennsylvania? It's all red blinking lights on the horizon behind all the
I don't
Amish
think you're
houses.
gonna see hot air balloons at Devon, let's just say
Yeah,
that. It's not gonna happen.
Well, I will say this too, generally, a lot of the leases are 50-year commitments. And right now, this is coming directly from Apex themselves, are roughly about a $20 per acre lease. So, I mean, as we've seen from the gas wells, I mean, this 20 acres is, or $20 an acre is, in my opinion, a slap to the face.
That's nothing, yeah.
For a 50-year commitment.
Well-
And that
Yeah.
lease stays with the property.
Right.
It doesn't go with the owner. And yes, I've spoken about that a lot, about the lending. I mean, be very cautious when you sign these leases, to at least have a lawyer look at them, because a lot of banks, because you use your house as collateral, well, if you were to default, and you defaulted on the whole piece, it'd be a cold day before Apex lets you default on their wind turbine. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on now. Like I said, I don't want anybody getting upset because there has been no proposed project. So,
And they all have indemnity clauses in the lease. You're responsible. We talked about this at the Trumbull meeting. The tower that's up, and the guy has this tower on his property, and that company is now bankrupt, and he can't get rid of it. He can't find anybody to take responsibility for it. Now, he has to try to find somebody, pay somebody to take it down, and he has to keep a light on top of it for the air traffic. So, I mean, and now it's his responsibility because that company is just gone. And, we don't have a lifetime, even as the gentleman mentioned, we don't even have a lifetime to measure some of these. How can we trust that these companies are gonna still be here?
Correct. Any other community comments?
I don't think anybody here, is anybody here for it, for,
No.
Okay. We're all in agreement there, so, okay.
So we'll be sending a resolution.
We will be
For full-
signing a resolution for, yes.
I think so.
All right, you, will make that motion to sign that resolution?
No, I'll make the motion. Or you,
I made the motion.
okay, I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries with 3 yes votes.
Full restriction?
Full restriction. Yeah. Yeah, I only asked about the partial restriction, because I was like, well, what does that entail? You know, I'm like, I got the full and, so, okay. All right.
Are you gonna have any future discussion about solar in the under 5 or?
We will now. Yeah,
Throw it in there.
yeah, so, okay. All right, any other community comments about anything, since you're all here?
How is the solar company making any money? What are they getting, what are they doing, or how are they gonna, where's the profit for them? What are they getting out of it?
I mean, that's only a question he could probably answer, but if you want my take on it,
Well, let
him answer first, they have to do it, he's part of a bigger conglomeration, they said they do, other energy.
So you gotta find
Correct.
some economically disenfranchised people to,
So it's like when they
Milk.
put in a big complex like Amazon, and they destroy the wildlife there, they have to build wetlands in different
Somewhere else,
locations.
yeah, like they get up
Right.
on 45.
Right.
yeah, like they're acting like the wetland's fungible, like you can just be built here, built there. It's like, no, actually, I
And then
ruined
they
it over there.
They'll sell you the credits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good stuff.
So I imagine that's a similar case, because you said your company is a part of a larger company that,
Sorry, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I heard your question. Were you referring to the wind or solar? Because I don't know anything.
So, I mean,
You're wondering how the
how are you
company
making,
makes
how are
money
you making money? What are you getting
from the
out of it?
generation of the electricity. So
So you sell it to the grid.
Yeah, exactly. The project has to be,
Do you set the price, or does the grid set the price?
the project would be studied by the utility here, First Energy, right?
yeah.
Okay, so First Energy has to study the project to make sure it's safe to hook up to the electrical grid.
So they're paying you for what you're
At the end of the
generating.
process, you sign what's called an interconnection agreement, any solar company to any utility, saying, yes, you can operate this project at this system size. You would have to have an off-taker to purchase the electricity generated. And I'm talking in simple terms here. Those off-takers could be I think I heard, it literally could be Amazon buying electricity. That's not gonna be the case here because we don't work with them. Our hope, again, for this specific project is that it would be local businesses and residents. Again, that's all hypothetical, so there's no point in really talking too much about it right now. But the answer to your question is solar in general. The developer makes money by selling the electricity generated by the solar panels to either a utility or to a subscriber. I hope that helps.
I don't know if it would work anything like the wind does, but with the wind, we talked to some people in Huron that did not get to this process that we're going through now. And they are being hit with a green fee because the price that it's being sold for, they still have to make a profit above that. The First Energy still has to show a profit, so they have to pass that cost on, and they pass it on to the consumers in the form of a green fee, they call it, on their bills.
To everybody, or just the one person
I'm
that
not
put
a-
up their?
No.
the
No,
product?
it's everybody,
has
so
to pay
everybody
for it.
pays for what they're doing in that case. I don't know if it's the same, I just can tell you that's what we learned about what they're doing with the wind in Huron.
Just so you know, First Energy, the electric companies in general, not just First Energy, but all the electric companies in the United States, it's privately owned. The government has regulations in there that don't allow them to lose money. They have to make money. Even though it's a private corporation, they have to make money. Instead of the grid being nationalized, which would save all of us a ton of money, it is not. It's privatized. I don't know why it was set up that way. I just know that it was. And there's regulations that those corporations have to make money. And the reason behind that is kind of understandable, because obviously we want our electricity, it's a national thing. It's actually one of the most treasured things. It's even better than our highway systems, which is federally regulated and maintained, other than, say, toll roads. But anyhow, it's privatized, but the government, the way they kind of control it is, say, they have to make a certain profit. By law, they have to make a certain profit.
So that's why when they put in for regulatory, they want increases, most of the time they get them?
Correct. So, yep. Remember, local government works. When it gets to big government, we're all at that mercy, right?
Dollars speak louder.
Yep. So, okay. Any other community comments?
I gave you a phone number of somebody on Weimar.
Yes.
I contacted her today and told her that I gave you her number.
Yes.
And she said, what do they do? I said, I don't know what they can do. It's probably
I tried
zoning
contacting
issue.
her, but I
So,
did not
okay.
get a hold of
Okay.
her, so.
I did talk to her today, but I gave her your number, so she may reach out to you directly.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, we're gonna continue on. I'm gonna jump to fire report.